God Save Birmingham seems to be a very terrifying game to play. When one hears the title God Save Birmingham, it may initially sound like a tongue-in-cheek prayer or a dramatic historical plea. But the truth behind this name is far more harrowing. God Save Birmingham is not a metaphor or a satire. It is a real, upcoming survival horror game set in 14th century Birmingham during a zombie apocalypse. Developed by Ocean Drive Studio and published by Kakao Games, this game catapults players into a hauntingly realistic medieval world consumed by plague, collapse, and the undead. It doesn't simply ask players to survive. It demands that they reckon with fear, scarcity, and the fragility of civilization in its most vulnerable state. Set against the backdrop of the Black Death, the game creates an atmosphere thick with dread. Unlike many modern zombie titles which often embrace spectacle and action-heavy combat, God Save Birmingham focuses on historical immersion and psychological pressure. The player isn't a superhero, nor are they armed with futuristic tech. Instead, they are a desperate survivor, navigating the filth-caked streets of a city on its knees. The horror stems not just from the zombies themselves, but from the complete erosion of order, infrastructure, and hope. The gameplay mechanics themselves add to this oppressive sense of realism. Players must manage hunger, thirst, fatigue, and panic while constantly making use of their environment in practical, sometimes improvised ways. Every object in the game is interactable under a realistic physics engine. Doors can be barricaded with furniture, ladders can be repositioned to escape rooftops, and debris can serve as cover or tools. This level of physical interactivity turns the city into a treacherous chessboard, where each movement carries consequence. The immersion is so complete that the world begins to feel less like a game and more like a test of one's primal instincts. A large part of the game's terror comes from its setting, medieval Birmingham rendered in chilling historical detail. Players will walk through accurate reconstructions of places like the Church of St. Martin in the Bull Ring, ancient markets, and Burgage plots. The town isn't just an aesthetic skin, it breathes history. The muddy roads, timber-framed buildings, and torchlit alleys act as oppressive reminders of a world before modern comforts. This use of real historical geography, entwined with the fantastic horror of a zombie outbreak, creates a dual sense of familiarity and alienation. The past, in this world, feels less romantic and more fragile, barely able to survive a natural pandemic, let alone a supernatural one. What elevates the fear factor further is the absence of catharsis. In God Save Birmingham, there are no flashy kill streaks or power-ups. There is no quick victory. The game asks players to crawl their way toward hope, step by agonizing step. Every day survived is a small miracle. The emotional toll is cumulative, as constant stress wears down the character and the player alike. The horror isn't flashy, it's suffocating. It seeps into the corners of every building and lingers in every quiet moment between attacks. Critics have already raised questions about the authenticity of the game's early footage, suggesting some of the interactions and animations may have been pre-rendered. Still, whether every second of the demo is representative or not, the underlying concept is deeply disturbing. A slow-burn zombie survival horror grounded in the gritty, disease-ridden past is a formula that departs from the fantastical comfort of many horror games. This is a world with no vaccines, no radios, no emergency broadcasts. Only rot, superstition, and silence. And there is a larger cultural resonance here too. God Save Birmingham reflects our collective fears not just of zombies but of collapse. It reminds us that civilization is brittle, that history is full of near-death experiences for humanity. The game doesn't offer a story of heroism, it offers a story of endurance. In doing so, it challenges the modern player to recognize how much they take for granted, and how quickly their comforts could turn to ashes. In conclusion, God Save Birmingham seems to be a very terrifying game not because it leans on gimmicks or spectacle, but because it builds horror from a foundation of realism, history, and human vulnerability. By placing players in a historically accurate city overrun by the undead and forcing them to survive not just monsters, but starvation, fear, and hopelessness, it delivers a gaming experience that is more than entertaining, it's sobering. This is not a game to enjoy lightly. It is a game to endure, to remember, and perhaps to fear long after the screen goes dark.